Hi, this is Graham from Happy Digital. I'm going to show you some speed tips for getting Autograss to render faster in your scenes. To start with, I'm going to talk about a common problem that our customers have setting up their scenes. Autograss uses real-world size for rendering the grass, so really you want to have your scene set up with real-world units. And you can access the max unit settings from the Customize Unit Setup menu. Oftentimes, Max will default to using generic units, and that doesn't really mean any units. But sometimes you'll end up building a scene in generic units if you happen to get started before you set up your units or so on. So let's see what happens usually if you have generic units instead of real-world units. I've just got a simple house on a lawn, and I want to put grass on my lawn. So I'm going to select my ground object, and I'm going to go to the V-Ray Primitives menu and click Autograss. And I'm going to turn on my preview so I can see the grass. Now there's just a few specks of grass here, so I'm wondering what's going on. I can turn up the number of grass blades that are previewed, and now I see more of where the grass is, but it looks really tiny. It just looks like dots. So you might be inclined to look at this length and say, well, the length is at 0.08, so maybe that's too small. Let's try blowing that up to 8. And then you get grass blades here in the preview that look pretty good. But the thing is, you don't know what the units are on this 8. 8 what? Who knows? So when you hit render, it might end up taking forever to even render one bucket, and you don't know why. So I changed the grass length from the default value to a much bigger value. Here I've typed 8, and now it makes my preview look correct. But let's see what's actually going on. This 8 doesn't have any units. We don't know if it's 8 centimeters or 8 meters or what is it. So let's turn on the real world units so we can find out. So I'm going to go to my Customize menu under Unit Setup, and I'm going to change it from generic units to an actual unit. So let's say, for example, if I pick centimeters and hit OK. Now we can see, my goodness, the grass is 800 centimeters. That's really long grass. Or if I go to my unit setup again and choose meters, you can see that 800 centimeters is 8 meters. So this grass is 8 meters long. So if I do a render, it's going to take forever because it's rendering really, really dense grass that's 8 meters long. But what does it look like in the preview? Well, actually what's going on here is because we set up our scene with generic units, and then we switched over to real-world units, we just didn't know how big our scene was. If I select the ground plane here and take a look at it, we'll see the ground plane is actually 3.5 kilometers wide. That's awfully big for a yard. And similar to the house is going to be more than a kilometer tall. So this is the danger of working in generic units, is that you really don't know how big the things are that you're building. And when you put in your grass and enter numbers to make it look good in the preview, you're actually making grass that's really gigantic, and it's not going to give you a good result. So to fix this, I'm going to delete the Autograss, go back to my unit setup, and since my world is about 100 times too big, I want to change my system units by a factor of 100. So let's see what are the system units. And these are the actual units that are used to store the coordinates of all of your objects. So it's in meters right now, and I want to be 100 times smaller. Let me switch it to centimeters. And I'm going to hit OK. Now if I pick my ground plane again, we can see it's 35 meters. That's much better. Now this is the real size of a grass lawn. Now I'm going to go back to my V-Ray Primitives tab and click Autograss again, turn on my preview, and increase my density a little bit there. Now we can see the grass blades still look good, and the length is 0.08 meters. So you have a unit here now. Now we can actually see that this is the correct length for real grass. So finally, if I hit render now, the whole thing renders quickly and the grass looks like real grass blades. So I hope this illustrates the importance of working with real scene units when you're building your scenes for Autograss. Remember that Macs will often default to generic units and that you should always go to your Customize Unit Setup and choose some units before you start working. And then you won't have any problems with weird length of grass or weird grass densities. So this really is the most common problem that I've seen our users having with setting up their scene files. It's the first thing that you should check if your scene is acting strangely, and especially when you're just starting a scene, you want to make sure that you have your units set to an actual unit and that you follow those units when you're building your objects. Next we'll talk about some V-Ray settings that you can use to speed up your renders, and also some Autograss settings that you can play with that make a difference as well.